I mean, RAG's kind of been a hot topic for a while now, and it's for a while it kind of seemed like it was going to solve all the world's problems, and then for a brief second, people kind of got away from it a little bit, but now it seems to be, you know, a part of the discussion again.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing is Microsoft's pushing Copilot and their RAG, but most customers are finding that it actually doesn't answer their prompts most of the time. It's mainly because when they query the system, cognitive search for the data to put in the RAG, it doesn't find it. And so of course, when you feed the wrong data to it, it's gonna be like, I don't know the answer.
Welcome to Practical AI, everybody. My name's Jeff. I'm here with Peter Lin. Practical AI is brought to you by Pocket AI. Pocket AI is a tool you can use to edit the weights of your model. With Pocket AI, you can prune over 60% of the weights in your model while increasing accuracy. Peter, today we wanted to talk a little bit about RAG. We have two fails, though. One of them is a RAG fail. First, let's talk about the vibe coding fail that hit the wire. And I'll bring this up on my screen while you're doing
Yeah.
that.
So basically, somebody was vibe coding and ended up deleting their database, which obviously is kind of catastrophic.
Yeah, especially if you don't have a backup, which I don't know if this is part of the
It
story,
probably
but
did, but it
yeah,
still sucks.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
So essentially, they build an agent. The agent, obviously has, features and it's got access to stuff, and you're interacting with the chatbot. And here it says, yes, I deleted the entire database without permission during an active code and action freeze.
Yeah.
So is this Skynet, like this thing went evil, or is this more like this is just a flaw in the code?
This is just a flaw in the code and flaw in how people use agents. Basically, the person kind of assumed that it would just do the right thing without actually checking it, which that's kind of the big complaint that people are seeing now is if you do vibe coding where you tell an LM a prompt and it gives you code, and you just use it without actually understanding it, actually analyzing, okay, is it doing what I want it to do? It could do things that are bad, basically.
Yeah. And is this something that normally would be caught in testing, or is it normally something that the programmer wouldn't code if it was just straight programming?
For straight programming, in the old days, someone would write it and they would test it,
Right.
and then we would check it in. They would make a pull request. We get in the main line, and then the QA team would then test it, and they'd be like, "Hey, by the way, you screwed up. It deleted the database."
Got it. Okay. So this would have been caught in QA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. We had another fail though, and this is on the RAG side.
Yep. This one is about large context and how large context can get dumb as the context gets bigger, and it's kind of it's known as the needle in the haystack problem, except there's multiple needles where there's a prompt. In this case, what was the best advice I got from a classmate, from a college classmate? So when there's just one sentence in it, it finds it, and regardless of how big the text is that you stuff in the RAG, it generally finds it. But the minute you put in similar sentences, then it gets dumb. And as you make the context bigger, the more similar sentences that are in the context, it gets dumber and dumber.
So is there a lesson as you're kind of prompting and building your context window? Is there a lesson there? Or is it just this happens every now and then and, you know, just check your answers?
So what this points out is there's a fundamental design weakness in how RAG works today. In that if you've got multiple sentences in your RAG that could be the answer to the question, to the prompt, that it chances are it won't find the answer,
Mhm.
which is quite common if you think about things like novels and movies and code, where you say, okay, here's my code base, it's 4 million lines of code, and you ask it, where does the code calculate tax? Well, there might be like 8 different places. So if you ask it the correct way, it might find it. If you just ask it in the most general way, it probably won't find it. So there's two lessons there. One is your prompt has to get really good and very specific. And two, well, what if you want it to find every possible answer and you don't want to be a very specific prompt? So now you've got this problem of like, well, it's like, which problem do you want to live with?
Got it. So have you seen this? Have you run into this a little bit in your when you're doing RAG prompts and stuff like that? Do you?
Yeah, no, I've done experiments where I told it to translate something from English to Mandarin, and I told it translate this poem from English to Mandarin, but make it rhyme, and it completely didn't rhyme at all. So then I gave it an example of a rhyming poem in Chinese, and then the text I wanted to translate, and it still didn't do it. And I spent about an hour coaching it and teaching and giving it hints until it finally produced something that kind of sort of rhymed, but was really terrible.
And you think it's kind of tied to this
It's the
problem?
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But on the good news, we've got kind of a RAG success story, and it's kind of the main point of uh, our podcast today, and that is um, this hybrid RAG fusion graph thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is new or been announced, but
No,
uh,
it's kind of old.
it is. Okay. Explain a little bit like what's going on here and why it
So
matters.
the idea of a knowledge graph is really old. It goes back to probably the 1970s. And the first kind of commercial product that did knowledge graph was OpenPsych. This has been around like before I was programming. OpenPsych actually has the largest knowledge graph database today that you can buy. Google has a bigger one, but it's private. No one can use it outside of Google. So there are these knowledge graph databases that exist. And so the idea is when you've got a large body of text, doing vector RAG doesn't work as you ask it, you'll query for the data you want to put into the RAG, but it won't find it because when you run the query, it's just going to turn up something dumb.
So Google has their semantic knowledge graph or whatever base that they build graphs off of,
Yep.
and this is just data that they've been collecting forever. Does it have a boundary, a limit to what they're collecting these semantic graphs for?
So what they've done is when they index the whole internet, they've actually built this semantic database, and it's been around for at least a decade. But no one outside of Google has seen it, as far as I know. Like I've known that it existed for many years, but I've never seen it because I don't work for Google, so I don't have access. But it does exist, and it's pretty big. It's one of the biggest ones.
And the way these semantic things work is essentially, I think you described it as triplets at one point, where it's
Yeah.
basically A is to B or B
Right.
is to C and whatever.
Yep.
So um, so then when you back at the ranch, then we're going to build a proper context window using RAG.
Yep.
How are they doing? How are they using this older technology or this older approach with RAG?
So the idea is to use both. Use vector RAG and graph RAG, combine the results, and feed that to the LM because that'll give you more information, and it's more likely to be the right information you need for the LM to actually read it and then reason over it.
Got it. Are you giving it the vector and the graph based off of the content topic or the actual
So
article or
Right. So what you do is you take the prompt and then you query both systems. You say, okay, for example, let's say I want to ask, does Peter have access to the system? So the graph might know Peter is working at this company. His role at this company is a data engineer, and he's a senior engineer. And senior engineers have this level of access, and that level of access is access to these databases, right? And so then that's the graph part of like, okay, here's Peter's relationship to the company, the data, the systems, and then there might be like some text about something else or related. You query both systems using the prompt, you get the results back, and you just combine it. And then it needs to be tokenized so that the LM can use it. But so you get those two things and then you feed it to the context. and then it has both pieces of data to reason over it.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So basically, it gets orchestrated to each
Yeah.
system. That one system gets its stuff put into the context window, and then you get the best results.
Yes, because right now the big problem people have is they'll feed RAG like a large PDF that's like 2 gigs, and then they'll say, "I have this question," and they're like, "I'm not getting the answer." It's like, well, you're never going to get it.
Yeah. 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 Well, it seems like I mean, RAG's kind of been a hot topic for a while now, and it's for a while it kind of seemed like it was going to solve all the world's problems, and then for a brief second, people kind of got away from it a little bit, but now it seems to be, you know, a part of the discussion again.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing is Microsoft's pushing Copilot and their RAG, but most customers are finding that it actually doesn't answer their prompts most of the time. It's mainly because when they query the system, cognitive search for the data to put in the RAG, it doesn't find it. And so of course, when you feed the wrong data to it, it's gonna be like, I don't know the answer.
So if you were gonna advise a company on the use case or the best time to use RAG, how would you just slim it down for them? How would you just say this is when I would do it and this is when I wouldn't, or this is how I would do it?
So we need to build a model that figures out should I query the vector, the graph, or both? Because I mean, there are cases where you just want it to summarize. Like if you say, here's my PowerPoint, just clean it up and summarize it better. Well, in that case, you don't need to do graph because you're telling it literally just fix my poor writing so it reads better. So in that case, you just use vector because you just take your PowerPoint text and you tokenize it, stuff it to the RAG, and it'll go through and it'll fix it for you. So that's great. But if you're saying, okay, I need to write a report on Stephen King, and I want to read 8 novels by Stephen King and tell me the overarching themes and ideas in his writing, well, okay, clearly you can't feed 8 novels to an LLM. It's not going to work.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. Well, once again, the old technology, the old approaches merged with the new ones seem to be kind of the actual innovation that's happening, which is kind of fun to see.
Yeah.
Some of us old guys are still relevant. Peter, good topic. Thank you. Remember, you can find us on Spotify. We are there. If you have questions or comments, let us know. We'll drop the links to these videos and articles in the discussion box, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.